Hello, hello. Happy Wednesday, friends. I'm going to put my phone in a little tripod here so it's a little higher so I don't have to look down. But I am so excited to be on here today, and we are talking weekends. So this is something that I feel like I see so often with clients as I check their nutrition, with ladies inside this group, in that the week goes well and then the weekends are just, they throw you off. And I totally get it. I've been there. There's a couple of reasons why this happens. So today I'm going to dive into why it happens, how to prevent it, how to manage it, how to plan for it, some solutions for if you are going into the weekend and you have unknown plans or plans that you can't control, how to handle it. So we're going to cover it all. So before we dive in, if you guys are new here, I'm Kate Horning. I am a chef and nutritionist. I'm the creator of Carb Cycling Bootcamp, which is a 6-week group program that I created to help ladies go from overwhelmed to empowered when it comes to healthy living. And we have another round starting here soon. I will put the details in the comments if you guys are watching live, and if you're watching the replay, it'll be down in the comments. But right now you can join the waitlist. It's katehorning.com/CCBC. So let's dive into weekends. So before we get too far into it, I want to remind you guys that, if you do well all week and weekends are just an absolute disaster, weekends are literally 3 days out of 7. So that's almost half of your week. And that is enough that you're not going to see results. If you are trying to live a healthier lifestyle, if you are trying to be intentional about your choices and you do well all week, you got to do well on the weekends too. And when I say well, I'm not talking about perfect. With my programs, with all of the methods that I teach, it's not about perfection. It's about consistency. And it's really about taking the strategies and the things that I teach you and how to implement that in a consistent way so that you can see results over the long term versus going all in, being perfect, and then it derailing and falling off. And that's what I've seen so far in the past with so many women, is that they're so extreme, they're so committed to this plan that isn't working with their life. And it's a short period of time, there's a deadline, there's an end game, and they try to go all in and then they get thrown off. And in reality, you've got to find something sustainable if you want it to stick long term. So with my boot camp, we really focus on a sustainable, healthy lifestyle that uses specific nutritional strategies to help shed fat and build muscle. But you can live your life. You can go out, you can have a drink, you can, go to your kids' soccer games, you can, wing dinner out and still know how to stay on track. So I do want you guys to remember that weekends are part of the week. You should be on track on the weekends, you should be on track on the week, but it's not about perfection, it's about consistency. And if you guys have questions or, have anything specific you want me to cover, just comment. I've got a lot of notes here from things that have been submitted earlier that I'm going to go over, but I'm happy to answer any questions for you guys as well. So first things first, I want you guys to figure out why your weekends are a mess, a hot mess, as we say. There's a couple of reasons that I've seen, and that's kind of what I'm going to touch on today, but I truly believe that change comes from reflection. Every week in my programs, I send out a weekly learning review because I want you guys to take a step back and that bird's eye view and really figure out, okay, like what went well this week, what went wrong. So if your weekends are sort of that thorn in your side, take a step back and figure out, okay, like what am I doing well on the weekends? How can I elevate that? And where am I going wrong? Where are things going awry? And how can I make some shifts? The first thing I see often is that weekends are lacking structure. And oftentimes with most programs, with most diets, they're almost too structured. So, to give you guys an example in my own life, back when I was really trying to figure out what worked for me, my weekdays would be so strict. I literally would have a special K for breakfast. I would have a tuna and an apple for lunch. I mean, I was so restrictive all week long. Lean cuisine for dinner. I would do an hour of cardio. It was just almost too much that when the weekends hit, I just needed a break. And it was one of those things where I would get to Friday night and my girlfriend would call and be like, hey, let's go have margaritas. And I would be like, heck yeah, let's go for it. And I would almost be well, I was so good all week, so I can afford to, kind of loosen up and have some fun tonight. And then that would start that spiral of guilt of oh, well, I overdid it today. I'll just start Monday. I'll get back on track on Monday. And what happens is, yes, you may be, on point. You may be under calories all week, But those margaritas and chips and salsa and all that stuff adds up fast, that likely you're going to be way over on calories and fat, that your total over the week average is going to be still in a surplus, which means you're not going to be losing weight. So that is number one. And if that's you, if you can relate to that, like, you're not alone. A lot of ladies that I work with are exactly in that same boat, and that is okay. How to fix it would be to really, again, take a step back and start to create a plan that's much more sustainable and much less restrictive so that it's consistent all week long. So maybe factor in some fun food during the week so that way you're able to have something to look forward to. Make sure that you're getting enough calories. That's another thing that I see so often is that we can only deprive ourselves so long before our body goes into like, I'm protecting myself mode, and literally our hunger, our cravings, and all of that really get ramped up because our body's trying to survive. So if you're in that situation, making sure your deficit is not too much. And that's something that I work with my clients on, is when they come to me, like, let's find that baseline of where, you know, your maintenance is, and then let's drop it into a reasonable deficit. So that way you're losing weight, but you're losing weight in a sustainable way and you're satisfied. The number one reason most people end up overdoing it or failing is because they just lose control. Willpower is a limited resource and we cannot depend on it to be successful. So you really have to make sure that you're not being too extreme, because eventually that's going to backfire on you. So if you're that person that does really well all week and then the weekends are crazy, look at, are you depriving yourself too much? Are you making sure to incorporate foods that you enjoy throughout the week? Are you in a deficit that's not too extreme? Ask yourself those questions, and then you can kind of start there and build out a plan that's going to be a lot more easy to stick to and a lot more realistic. And I do have some notes. I want to make sure I touch on everything. So the next thing is also getting super clear on what you want to enjoy. So for me, like, I love a margarita. That's something I'm not going to give up. And making sure you're factoring that again. Now, those fun foods, I talk about fun foods a lot, but those fun foods are key to helping you stay on track and helping you to really make sure that you are successful. Because again, deprivation is just going to end up ruining your life. And embrace food. Remember that, like, food is meant to be pleasure. Food is meant to be enjoyed. Food is meant to be fun. Margarita nights with your girlfriends, like, that is living your life. If you don't factor that stuff in and plan for it and make sure you include it, like, eventually you're going to fall off because life's gonna suck. So I used to fear food. I remember a lot of times, like in college, I used to feel guilty. I never actually enjoyed my meals when I did indulge because that guilt was always in the back of my mind. So now I really recommend, like, focusing on, okay, if you are planning, like, say donuts is like a routine on Saturdays with your family, like, that's something that you just look so forward to. It's fun. Like, make room for that. Put that into your day first, build the day around it to support that donut. And then you've decided to do it. Realize, like, that's an empowered decision and go after it. Enjoy that donut, savor every bite. There's zero guilt because, again, it's an intentional choice, where if it's restrict, and then binge, like, that's not intentional. You're never going to get that pleasure out of it. Another thing that's really helped me, with that all in, all or nothing mindset was to remember I'm going to eat again. Like, you don't have to eat all of everything. I know that this was something that, I would be like, oh, well, I get to have pizza. Like, I'm going to go crazy. I can have pizza anytime now. So for me, like, I have a little bit of pizza, I move on. I have, the margarita and chips, and I move on because I know I can have it again. And that's a huge empowering shift, in my opinion, to know, like, okay, I can have whatever I want, so I don't have to go crazy when I do have it. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm just going to pop up here and see if I have any questions popping up. Okay, good ones. There's a lot of good ones. Awesome. I will get to these at the end, I promise. Okay, so another thing I want to talk about is, and this tends to be a situation I see especially with my clients when I'm checking nutrition, is that, again, week looks good. They're not being too strict. They're not being too restrictive. They're just on track all week. And then the weekends sort of blow up. And when I ask them, hey, what's going on here, between alcohol, dining out, all of that, the biggest factor that comes into play is lack of a plan. So with, dining out, for example, if you are able to know ahead of time, and I know this isn't always the case, but if you are able to know where you're going ahead of time, it's great to take a step back and choose before you're in the situation. So if you guys know, okay, Saturday night, my kid has a basketball game, we're going to Buffalo Wild Wings afterwards. Look at that menu ahead of time, and this is just an example, but look at that menu ahead of time and choose not necessarily what is the healthiest choice, because again, our goal isn't to deprive ourselves. Our goal is to be intentional, be healthy, enjoy our life. But look at the menu ahead of time and make an informed decision when you're out of that emotion, when you're able to really align with, okay, what are my goals? What's going to make me feel good? What sounds good? Choose those things. And then again, you're going into the situation with a plan, and you're able to really go into it and stick with it and not feel guilty because it's a choice you made for your best interest in mind, versus, going into Buffalo Wild Wings, ordering a beer because everyone else is, getting the wings because everyone else is, all the chaos of the situation. It can be very difficult to make a good decision when there's so much going on. So pull yourself out of that situation. Make an informed decision, make an empowered choice, and then embrace it because you chose it. If you choose to have a beer and wings, it's because you chose that and you've built the rest of the day around it to support it, versus, you're in the situation, you do what everyone else is doing, and then you feel guilty about it. Now, if you don't know where you're going, we're going to talk about that here in a second. So don't worry, I'm going to touch on that. As far as, not knowing, so not having structure. So the first option, this is the ideal, is to go into your weekend with a plan, to look at your weekend and say, okay, like, what do we have going on? What are the tricky things? What are the things that we need to make work? Again, maybe it's a pizza night, maybe it's a donuts, maybe it's Buffalo Wild Wings. Put those in first into your plan and then build the day around it. Does that make sense? To where you're almost like supporting the things that could potentially throw you off by balancing out your day, versus, again, going into your day and doing whatever, and then you end up in the weeds because you went out to dinner. Alcohol, I want to talk about that. That tends to be one of those things where, and I'm talking about two things here. There's definitely a weight loss, fat loss, deficit cut phase. And if you are losing weight and you're, in my program right now, that is a phase you're in. You're in a deficit. So life looks a little bit different. While I want it to be sustainable, life does look a little bit different inside of a deficit than it does in maintenance. What I want you guys to remember, though, is a deficit is a temporary period of time where you are losing weight. So when that's the case, you're probably going to be a tiny bit more strict, a tiny bit more intentional than you are in maintenance. But the goal here is to build out a lifestyle that you enjoy during deficit, so when you get to maintenance, it's really sustainable. So that being said, maybe you have one less glass of wine when you go out with your friends during a deficit, because again, you have goals. It depends on what your goals are, but alcohol's empty calories. Like, bottom line, I love wine. I have a glass of wine several nights a week, sometimes almost every night. Like, I love it. It's something that I incorporate into my life. But I'm also in maintenance mode right now. I'm not in a cut. I'm not in a deficit. When I'm in a deficit, I cut back. So really remembering, like, okay, if you are trying to get healthier, if you are trying to lose weight, instead of 3 drinks, what if you had 2? Instead of 3 drinks, what if you had 2 and then you had maybe a club soda, and that was an empowered decision? Instead of 2 drinks, maybe you have 1. Instead of, 6 drinks throughout the week, maybe you have 3. Like, how can you cut back a little bit? And again, really help to support your goals in a way that you're not giving everything up, but you're still, again, what do you really want? What's that goal that you're working towards? And then how can you make choices to support it? If you're used to drinking all weekend long, what if you just cut out one night? Like, those small steps do add up. And my only problem with alcohol is, again, it's empty calories. And when you are trying to, get leaner, get stronger, like, we need that protein to support that muscle growth. If we're factoring in 400 empty calories, we're not getting our protein. And that said, if you do factor in drinks, it's carbs and fat. You want to make sure you're still hitting that protein goal. So if you go out and have a couple beers, make sure that you're hitting your protein and use those calories from carbs or fat just for the alcohol. My rule of thumb, and this is how I approach it, is I try to 2 glasses of water in between every drink. So if I go out to dinner or if I go out for the evening and I have 2 glasses of wine, it's glass of wine, 2 glasses of water, glass of wine. And then from there, cut out that 3rd one and I have a club soda and I enjoy it and I'm, moving on. Again, this is not all the time. There are times where I go out and I have fun and I don't worry about it, but I'm also, again, not in a deficit at the moment. So for me, I have a little bit more wiggle room. Also, really focusing on being super present with this. I think a lot of times, we go through life and we're mindless. If you can be really intentional and just take a small sip and really enjoy it. And, and that applies to food, donuts, wine, beer, wings, all the things. Like, the more present, the more in the moment we can be, the easier it is to eat a little less, to drink a little less, to stay on track. And that takes me to my next point. If you are dining out, really try to focus on eating a little less, because bottom line is that food is going to be much more calorie dense, much less nutrient dense. So making sure you're really being mindful about what you're consuming and eating slowly, putting your fork down, talking to people while you're there, really just being in the moment and eating until you're satisfied. I always say like 70% full, and then moving on. You're going to feel a lot better than if you gorge yourself and eat everything. So if you're having something that is a little bit more indulgent, just eat a little less of it. And again, it's about making those empowered decisions that add up, that really make you feel like, okay, I did a good job, versus, oh crap, I screwed up, I might as well keep on going. Okay, so let's talk about the unknowns, because this is something that I feel like I see a lot with ladies. Is it's okay, like I know my kid has basketball, but I don't know where we're going, I don't know what we're doing. Control what you can control. So this is something I really like to focus on. I talk with my clients a lot about front loading their day. And essentially what that means is control what you can and then leave room for the unknown. And by having a plan, again, the whole thing goes back to planning. If you have a plan, you cannot fail. Even if your plan is not perfect or to a T, at least you have something and it sets you up for success. So front loading your day essentially means like, okay, I know we're going out to dinner tonight. I don't know where we're going. So I'm going to make sure that my early day plans are really going to support whatever, is in the open. Or same thing with like lunch. Okay, I don't know where I'm going for lunch, but I'm going to make sure breakfast and dinner are going to support that. When we dine out, it's going to be lower in protein, it's going to be higher in fat, it's going to be higher in calories. So I really want you to focus on getting that protein in early in the day, getting some fiber in, getting that water in, and leaving plenty of room, like 600-700 calories at least, 20 grams of fat plus like left for the unknown. And then that allows you to make an empowered decision that isn't going to completely derail you. So if you can really get a good solid start for your day, have some protein oatmeal for breakfast. That's good fiber. That's good protein. That's some carbs. Maybe some chicken salad for lunch. Maybe an apple as a snack and a protein bar or a protein shake or some jerky. Again, that's a nice healthy day that's setting you up to give you some wiggle room for the rest of the day. The last thing I want to say on that is having some sort of things prepped makes a big difference. So again, if you can plan to have some lunches prepped, like the chicken salad, or if you don't have things prepped, having easy grab and goes like, turkey, lentil pasta, a protein packed frozen meal, tuna, turkey burgers, easy things that you can assemble quickly that are easy to grab and go. Make, like through the week, like you have prepped lunches for the week, why can't you have them on the weekend type of thing? Because it does make it a lot easier to stay on track when you've got options, when you've got things that are easy. To that point, plan your weekends. Just like you have structure during the week, the weekend rolls around, it's a free-for-all. That's going to only make it hard to stay on track. So even if you want a little bit more flexibility, having some things planned, having your day front-loaded, having the donuts plugged in and the rest of the day supported, doing those types of things allows you to, again, stay on track and not be completely thrown off. Stay active, stay hydrated. Like those are all things we do during the week. So let's do that on the weekends. And then if you do overdo it, don't let that derail you. Take a step back, take a deep breath, kind of reflect on it. Really make sure, again, like, okay, this is what I did, well, this is what I need to improve on. Use every opportunity as a learning lesson for growth. Don't ever say, okay, well, I screwed up, it's over. No, it's all about, okay, what can I do better next time? How can I learn from this experience? I had another question here. I'm a lot more on the go. Things pop up. So for you, having things on hand that are easy to grab and go, things that are prepared, like that chicken salad, throw in a cooler, take it and go. And then things that pop up, again, front loading that day, controlling what you can, the things that pop up, you have flexibility for. Unexpected opportunities arise. Again, same thing. Leave plenty of room for fat, plenty of calories. And then, just again, go into it and eat mindfully. You can't overdo it if you're intentional, if you're mindful, if you chew your food, if you enjoy every bite, and then you move on when you're done. Don't think of going out as a free-for-all. And then seems like there are always some type of holidays like Super Bowl, birthday celebration. So discipline, that is something that you have to, again, remind yourself of who you are and decide who you want to become. So discipline in my mind equals freedom. So factor in like the Super Bowl, for example. Okay, what's that non-negotiable? What's that thing that you really want to enjoy? Maybe it's nachos. Have a quarter of your plate, those nachos. fill half your plate with something healthy and then have a quarter of your plate with something else you want to try, or even half your plate with nachos, but really trying to balance your plate of some sort of protein, some sort of vegetables, and then being mindful of the heavier foods, the cheesy foods, the fat, that kind of stuff. Again, also front loading your day before that party so that you go to that party and you've got some wiggle room. But really reminding yourself of, okay, I want this goal. I want to feel healthy. I want to be fit. I want to, lose X weight. I want to feel, confident and comfortable in my skin. Those are all things that if they're important to you, then you need to find, okay, how can I be more disciplined to make better choices because I know it's going to support my goal. And that does take practice. It takes accountability. It takes some support. But if you really prioritize, your goals, then it's a lot easier to say yes and say no because you've got a plan on where you're going. So that is what I got for today. I will be happy to hop on here again with another topic that you guys feel like you need support with. But I will see you guys here soon. Also, if you guys want more information on Carb Cycling Bootcamp, I'm going to post all the information in the comments below. We have another round starting in March, so it literally lays out all of the stuff that I taught you here and so much more. I'm sorry, I have someone at the front door, as always. But yeah, and I will see you guys next week as well. I'll be back to cooking live, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you all soon.